Right now, as you watch this video, your body is in a position that barely existed for most of human history. You are sitting. In a chair, an armchair, on a couch, in a car, on a bed, on a cafe stool. Your hips are bent at about 90 degrees. Your back is resting against a backrest. Your legs are doing almost nothing. This position feels so normal to you that you hardly even notice it anymore. The chair has become part of the background, like air. But if a person from the distant past saw how many hours a day we spend like this, they would probably think it was some kind of strange ritual. Long periods of motionless sitting, repeated every day for an entire lifetime. And that brings us to the first idea worth starting with. A chair does not just support the body. Slowly, invisibly, day after day, it teaches the body not to move. To understand just how strange that is, look at how people rested before the world of chairs. They sat on the ground, cross-legged, with their legs stretched out, or with one knee bent. They squatted, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. They leaned their backs against a tree or a wall. They stood, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. They lay directly on the ground. They ate sitting back on their heels. They repaired tools by the fire, constantly changing position. The body was resting, but it was never completely still. Even at rest, the small muscles were working, the ones that keep balance, hold posture, and redistribute load. Rest was not the body switching off. Rest was quiet work. And now comes a historical turn most people never think about. For a long time, the chair was not furniture for everyone at all. It was a symbol of power. A throne, the ruler's seat, the judge's seat, the elder's seat, the teacher's seat. Only one person in the room sat in a chair. The others stood, sat on the floor, or sat on benches. To sit in a chair meant being above everyone else, literally. And then, over the last couple of centuries, everything flipped upside down. Chairs appeared in schools, and children were seated at desks. They appeared in factories and offices, and people were seated at machines and tables. Then they showed up in cars, movie theaters, trains, airplanes, cafes, kitchens, and in front of computers. What was once a symbol of special status became the standard position in which modern people spend most of their waking lives. The throne became a cage. Think about what an ordinary day looks like for an adult. The hips are bent. The back is pressed against a backrest. The shoulders drift slightly forward. The head reaches toward a screen. The legs do almost no work. In the morning, there is a chair at the kitchen table, then a seat in the car or on public transit, then a work chair. Lunch means another chair. In the evening, a couch. At night, a bed. We call this normal life. We call sitting on the couch rest. But if you look closely, it is not really rest. It is just another version of the same stillness. The body spends the whole day in almost the same shape, with only short breaks. Now, here is what the science says. And this is where it is important to be careful. The human body is built for regular changes in posture, not for one perfect posture, but for change itself. Muscles like taking turns switching on and off. Joints like to move through their full range of motion. Blood flows better when the legs are active. When you sit for long periods, the activity of many muscles drops close to zero, especially the large muscles in the legs and glutes. Circulation changes, and metabolic activity in the lower half of the body slows down. Long periods of sitting in the same position have been linked to lower back pain, neck tension, tight hips, and an overall loss of mobility. But there is an important caveat here. A chair, by itself, does not break a person. Not everyone who works at a desk is doomed to pain. The problem is not the chair as an object. The problem is the dose, the hours. The fact that modern people spend so much time in one position, more time than people in the past ever did. The real enemy is not sitting. The real enemy is spending many hours in the same shape without breaks. There is one more interesting point worth mentioning carefully. Researchers who observed people in traditional societies noticed something interesting. Those people also rest for long periods, sometimes even more than an office worker. But they rest in different positions, squatting, sitting on the ground, sitting back on their heels, or supporting themselves with their hands. In those positions, muscles work differently than they do in a soft chair. The body does not switch off completely, it stays lightly engaged. Maybe the issue is not how much we rest. Maybe the issue is how we rest. And now for the most uncomfortable part. Look at how the chair follows us through an entire human life. A child goes to school and is seated at a desk for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, often for the first time in life for that long. A teenager comes home and sits down to do homework, then sits with a phone, then sits at a computer. An adult sits in the car, sits in the office, sits in a cafe, comes home and sits on the couch. An older person sits in front of the TV, and sometimes does not get up for hours. We are born in bodies made for constant movement and constant changes in posture. And then we spend our whole lives teaching those bodies to wait, work, and rest while sitting. And here comes the unexpected twist. We often say that modern people work too much, that they are exhausted, that they need rest. But maybe that is not the real problem. Maybe the real problem is that even rest has become motionless. In the past, people got tired from movement and rested in stillness. Now they get tired from stillness and then rest in even greater stillness. We do not rest the body anymore. We shut it down. And one last thing. Our ancestors sat on the ground and still remained part of the world around them. They felt the surface beneath them, kept their balance, changed positions, stood up, and sat down again. We sit in a chair, and little by little, we disappear from our own bodies. We stop listening to them. We only notice them when something starts to hurt. The chair gave us a great deal: schools, offices, writing, books, computers, civilization in the form we know it today. Almost everything we are proud of was made while sitting down. But in return, it took from the body what it had spent millions of years doing, constantly changing shape. And maybe your body hurts not because it is weak, and not because you did something wrong. Maybe it has simply spent too long in a position it was never designed for. Think about that the next time you sit down.